All right, so today we gotta have a conversation, and I know y'all don't want to talk about viruses. Y'all don't like even hearing the word virus. I know scares a lot of people, especially those in the lunch learning community. But you're with yours truly, Dr. Barry Pierre, board certified internist, and today we gotta talk about this most recent outbreak that's going on as I speak, as I record the hantavirus that's going on in this cruise ship, right? So let's give the numbers and then we're going to have a discussion. We're going to have a conversation because people are asking that question, is the P word possible, right? They don't even want to say what it is, right? They want to know, is it possible to have a pandemic, right? So these are the numbers, right? And like I said, we'll get to the introductions in a second. Right now, we have 8 to 9 confirmed cases affecting countries South Africa, Netherlands, Germany, and Switzerland, with 3 people who have already passed away from this disease. And I would be remiss, right, to be concerned, right? Like I can't even act like y'all should not be concerned, but I want you guys to be concerned for the right reason. So today we're going to talk about what is the hantavirus, right? Because again, I'm pretty sure the search Google term has shot up through the roof since this cruise outbreak going on. And I think the second most important question that people want to know is, are we headed to another pandemic? And today we're going to find out. All right, so here's kind of the bottom line that we have to have this conversation about. When we talk about the hantavirus or the COVID virus, right? When we talk about SARS-CoV-2 versus this hanta, I hate that we're even having a conversation of versus. It shouldn't be versus. We should be focused on what we're focused on, but I know that's what people refer to now, and I think anytime anything like this happens, COVID is going to be referred to, right? Because a lot of people, again, had to live through it. Thankfully, right? If you're still here, you lived through COVID, right? And you lived through the pandemic. So you understand how bad it can go. And of course, as a physician, public health professional, we don't want you guys to have to experience the worst that it could possibly be for you guys to be worried about it. But that's the reality that it is. So let's talk about the hantavirus. Let's talk about, is it ready to take over the world like COVID did? And we're going to have that conversation because I think it's so important, especially when we think about some of the conversations that a lot of people, rightfully so, have PTSD because of COVID, right? And the pandemic and everything that stemmed from it, through it. A lot of people were affected by it. And, if you've been following this, if this is your first time catching an episode here on my YouTube channel or my podcast, depending on where you're listening to it, or it's just your 5th time, you've been rocking with us for years, that, before it was, this hantavirus, we were talking about COVID and we were talking about the flu and every other illness that could affect us, especially as a community significantly, right? It was always a conversation. So let's have this conversation today about the hantavirus, right? And again, like I said, I know the Google terms have been searching, right? Let's give a quick update just for those who maybe you're living under a rock and you don't even know what's going on with this cruise ship, right? Let's give some updates, right? Again, we talked about it earlier in the show. 8 suspected cases, 3 deaths, and I think it's important, right, just to give a timeline, right? This is again, because I always like to think, especially when we think about origin, right? Because unfortunately, weirdly enough, I have a lot of conspiracy theorists who follow me. And I think a lot of it just comes from, they saw my content when I was talking about COVID, when I talked about the flu, when I was talking about monkeypox. So they saw one of those contents and they like to argue, right? So I'm already seeing on social media people talking about like, oh, this is man-made. Oh my God, look what the government did again. What they're trying to get, I'm already seeing all of these like ridiculous theories that transpire anytime something like this happens, especially here in this country, United States, where unfortunately our administration has not put us in the best position to address these things, especially when they make it seem like the experts have to be lying about stuff like this, right? So neither here or there, but let's talk, right? So we had a cruise ship that left, I apologize if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Ushuaia, Argentina, on April 1st, and symptoms began developing between April 6th to the 28th, right? And, what were the symptoms they were experiencing, Dr. Barry? Because I know that's a question. A lot of high fever, pneumonia, GI symptoms, respiratory distress, and eventually developed shock. And like I said, we're going to talk a little bit later about why this isn't COVID, even though you may remember COVID had GI issues, COVID had fever, pneumonia, respiratory, like, so I know it sounds, I know how it sounds, y'all. Trust me, I know how it sounds just coming out of my mouth. But I want y'all to just kind of sit with us, right, and understand. And very quickly, right? Very quickly, like when you do your search on the hantavirus and kind of where this comes in at, what's concerning for us, especially the medical field, public health field, and obviously the general community, is like, all right, how do these people get it? How do these people get it? Because when you do your first initial research, it's always about the hantavirus, and there's always this animal to animal transfer, in particular rodents, aka rats. So the rats carry it. And they're trying to figure out, like, well, the rats carry it, like, what's going on now? Like, how is all of these human bodies getting it? And like we always say, when it comes to viruses' main job is to try to survive. So in surviving, right, they will mutate. And somehow, some way, right, there's a mutation that now has allowed it to jump from just rodent to human. And again, like, people are afraid. They should be, right? They should be afraid. I don't want to say afraid. They should be cautious. They should be cautious when something like this happens, right? But again, it is reality. It is. And like, now we have to deal with it, right? Now we have to be able to answer the tough questions. More importantly, how do we protect ourselves, right? Because that's the question everyone has, right? I think the big thing that's here, right? Because I saw a lot of people say they searched the, the cruise ship for rats. They didn't find any rats, right? Because they just figured, like, oh, there's got to be a rat somewhere. There's got to be some rats somewhere. Just, like, I don't know if they thought they were going to find like a horde of rats just sitting there waiting for them. I don't know what the thought process was going to be. But again, you got rat droppings, rat urine. Like, again, the rat don't necessarily have to be there for that to occur, right? And again, that's not to say that someone probably, right, like, was with rats prior to the cruise ship, brought it to the cruise ship, right? Again, this is scenarios at hand, right, that we have to actually address and just ask ourselves, right? So let's talk about what the hantavirus is, just so we can kind of get a little background, right? Again, I know, again, if you're a Lunch Alert community member, I'm not going to inundate you with all of the sciences, but I got to get you guys, at least prepared to know what's going on. Okay, so what is the hantavirus? So this is the first thing that you should know, right? It's a rare disease, right? So this is not like the common cold. This is not like the flu. It's a rare disease. Usually came from people who contact with infected rodents through their urine, droppings, saliva, right? And so again, I just want to say, like, so just because they didn't find any rodents on the cruise ship doesn't mean that someone didn't bring the hantavirus to them, right? Because again, I'm not pointing any fingers here. During the pandemic, there were a lot of people who would be symptomatic from COVID and still had to go to work. So imagine, right? So imagine you've been planning to go on a cruise for, months. Because I don't go on cruises, but I've been told that a lot of these things you got to book like months ahead, right? So imagine you've been planning to go on this cruise for months, and the week prior you start getting a little cough and cold, right? You're like, you know what? I don't care how I'm feeling, I'm going. Yeah, not saying that anyone did that, but I just want y'all to put that scenario, right? So again, what causes it? In the United States and other parts of Western Europe, hantavirus can cause hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, right? A disease that starts like the flu and becomes rapidly life-threatening. Again, we had 8-9 cases, 3 deaths. That's a high percentage, y'all. In Europe and Asia, some hantaviruses cause hemorrhagic fever, renal syndrome, which can affect the kidneys and sometimes cause bleeding. So yes, this is a bad disease. We don't want to sit here and act like, all right, this is a disease that y'all can just act like is like, I'm gonna just let the news blow over it. No, you should actually be concerned, right? For good reasons, but again, not the pandemic reason that we'll talk about, but you should be concerned, right? So what are early symptoms? Again, we talked about fever, fatigue, muscle aches, headaches, chills, nausea, body pain. Again, I know this is what you'll notice is that a lot of viral bugs will cause a lot of the initial symptoms, right? Because your body's trying to fight it. And this is typically the response your body gives when it's trying to fight, a foreign pathogen, right? Like a virus, right? Fever, fatigue, muscle aches, headaches, right? That sounds like a person who caught the flu, but this ain't the flu, y'all. And again, we talked about, especially on the case of the cruise ship, how are people getting it, right? They're breathing it in the air, air contaminated with the rodent urine, dropping saliva, or, right, which is less common, person to person spread. That is why if you're paying attention to the news, you're seeing that they are going on like a Carmen Sandiego witch hunt to find out, like, hey, if you were on this cruise, and where did you go? We need to know all the places you went to. Again, very similar to how, especially with monkeypox. Remember how monkeypox, where they'd want to know, like, hey, where's all the places you done been to? Where's all the places you done touched, right? Same thing. COVID, where's all the places you've been to? Who are all your point of contacts? And like I said, in the next segment, we're going to talk about how this differs from COVID and our concern level, right? 1 to 10 concern level. Are we headed to another pandemic, right? Like we'll have that conversation. Like, are we headed to another pandemic? Because again, I know what y'all are here for. But remember, before we do that, y'all already know what to do, right? Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Right, hit that notification bell. Get those likes up, get the subscribers up. Right, make sure you share this out to like 10 friends. Right, because this is an important conversation. Again, and this is so funny because this episode is actually an interjection episode, right? Because normally when I do our Medicine Mondays, we kind of have a little set schedule of things. But of course, when you have something like this go down, like, yeah, you can't just wait for a Medicine Mondays block to open up to throw this in here. Like, you got to get it to people now. I got a lot of people requesting it. So how do we prevent it, right? Because that's the question, right? How do I prevent this thing? Rodent control, safe cleanup, keeping food sealed, right? So a lot of it is focused on the rodents. But now the question becomes like, all right, like if it's person to person, what do I need to do, right? Do I need can I mask up, right? That's the question. Can I mask up? And I'm always, I've been team mask. I was team mask before COVID. I'm team mask during COVID. I'm team mask now, especially when we're dealing with disease that looks like it has the ability to now spread from person to person. Like, now I could be talking to a person, or someone could be in the room talking. I go in the room and definitely want to carry your mask, right? And it's important, again, understanding that, again, like I said, a lot of the focus is on the rats and everything, but yeah, like it's an issue at hand when we think about where we're going and the coverage. Because I see, especially in the United States. I'll only speak about the United States. Right? I can't speak about the rest of the world. I only speak about the United States. What I saw happen with COVID, at least, and there was transition periods with COVID where people were very afraid of COVID. They were very worried about COVID, to the point where people were like, hold on, like, I got to stay in the house all day. I got to wear a mask all day. Then they were upset at COVID. They were mad at COVID. They were mad at anyone who tried to, people like me, right? Because again, I got the receipts. They were mad at people who were trying to educate people to like try to stay away from it, right? We're very indifferent when it comes to conversations like this. And I noticed, especially when it comes to from a community perspective, we're not necessarily, we're in the United States, right? And in general, I'm not saying all, right? Because I know there's a lot of big pocket is, right? There's a good amount of people here who aren't about the community. So if you told them like, hey man, we gotta mask up again so we can prevent hantavirus, people are gonna be like, nope, you can't tell me not to mask, right? That's the reality that it is. Even though we're dealing with a disease much more deadlier than COVID, they're like, nope, you can't tell me what to do. I ain't gonna do it, right? So again, that's a conversation at hand, right? So let's talk a little bit about where the paths start diverging and that question of, do I need to be worried about a pandemic, right? It's in regards to COVID, right? Because again, like I said, now everyone's reference point, because they lived through the pandemic, if they've been fortunate enough, because a lot of people were not. If they lived through the pandemic, they're able to Monday morning quarterback, but now they're like, all right, like, do I need to worry about another pandemic on the rise, right? So let's see here, right? So most hantaviruses stop with the person who breathed it in, right? Which means that it's not a type of virus that's going to go from one person, 2, 3, 4, all in the room. Very different from COVID. Very different from COVID. Like when COVID, and I say when, as if COVID's not here. When COVID's doing what COVID's doing, I walk into the room and I can give 10 people the COVID virus, right? Like if I'm shedding and I'm active and I'm coughing and talking and I'm doing whatever I need to do, I can affect 10 people. That's not the same that we're seeing with the adenoviruses, the hantaviruses, and which is a good thing from that perspective here. And this is the thing too. This is more of a science thing, but understanding that, like, from a science perspective, there's a figure that we think about, right? Like just a term, right? We call it R naught, right? And for the R naught, for our layman's folks, I like to say, what is the ability to be able to spread to a whole bunch of people? Like, what is that ability? And COVID has a high R naught, which means COVID has a high ability to spread to a whole bunch of people. Unlike this hantavirus, right, which does not have that ability, which means that when COVID, for example, just give you a quick scenario, right? Because like I say, y'all know I took care of, at Wellington Regional, I was the first doctor to take care of a patient with COVID, right? We diagnosed her. I think she was coming from, she was definitely coming, she was an international trip. Drove up. We were like, yeah, you definitely got the COVID, right? So she was one of the first ones. I was like the first doctor to diagnose a patient with COVID at my hospital. And what happens with COVID is that if I have COVID and if I'm actively in the infectious state of COVID, I could walk around for like a week or so before I become symptomatic. But that whole week, I had that ability to spread it to everybody. You don't have that same characteristic with the hantavirus. So the second if I were to pick up hantavirus, oh yeah, I'm becoming symptomatic pretty quickly. So there is that lay period of like, oh, I'm not sure, like I'm just walking around like life is good. Like no. Like if I have it, I'm going to the display those symptoms, right? So just so you guys could kind of understand from that perspective there, right? And I like this quote. Think of hantavirus like a blowtorch, incredibly hot and dangerous, but only burns when it touches directly, right? So that I like that, right? Yeah, like yes, it's hot, it burns, but as long as you don't touch it, you're good, right? COVID virus, that ain't it, right? And so from a rationale perspective, right, when we start thinking about is this the early warning signs for a pandemic, that's actually a good thing, right? Think about this. If I was a virus and my main job as a virus was to infect as many people as possible, I don't want to cause the person I'm infected to get sick very quickly, because when you get sick, guess what? You lay out, you go away from people. So now as a virus, I can't spread to 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't do that. But if I'm a good virus, right, and I'm trying, like my job is to try to get to as many people as possible, I want to be able to kind of sit around in the background, getting everybody sick. You don't know it because I haven't made you symptomatic yet, right? That's that big thing with COVID, right? COVID was able to sit in people, spread to a whole bunch of people, and then sit in those people and then spread to a whole bunch of people. Hantavirus is not doing that, which is why we're having that high number of count, right? AKA 8, 9 people, but also we're getting like 3 people died, right? Like that's a lot of people, right? Could you imagine, right? Could you imagine if 33% of the people who got infected by COVID died? I want y'all to think about that number. All right, so as of early 2026, so this is just kind of total, and 79 million people have been confirmed to be infected with COVID, right? So think about that. 79 million. What is 33% of 257 million? Just so you can understand, if COVID was that bad, how many people, right, would not be here? 257 million. So we better thank the Lord that COVID doesn't have, the kill rate that this virus is experiencing right now, that displaying right now. Whoever your Lord is, pray to that person, right? But because of that, when we talk about a pandemic meter, it's on the low run, right? Because those who get infected by it, y'all see the numbers, like 33% of y'all, right? Now let's say y'all, 30% of them might not make it, right? That just is what it is. So understand that, yes, it is very, very concerning when we think about what this can do, right? And again, another quote I see: if you get severe hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, the mortality rate is about 38%, y'all. Like I should be able to stop the episode there. If you get hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, the mortality rate, aka you not making it here, is about 38%. Yeah. So much worse, much more concern, right? So again, this is what I'm saying. I'm not telling you, hey, because it can't cause a worldwide pandemic, you shouldn't be worried about it. I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you that if you mess around and get a virus like this, you got a 40% chance of not being here. That's what I'm telling you. Right? So again, let's just knock out, and obviously Obviously, this is a big one, right? Some myths, because we got to get, because I already know the social media, like, because this is the time frame where we start trying to kill some of these social media myths and BS out of here, right? So you guys can get some good and appropriate information, right? Unfortunately, right, like I said, y'all already know who's running the CDC right now. May not be the best, may not be the best area to get your best information, but they may have something there, right? So I'll put some information in the show notes for you guys, so some good, credible information that you can get to. World Health Organization, of course. Understand that if it, I see if it's deadly, a pandemic is inevitable. No, that's not the case. Again, we've kind of talked about why that's not the case, right? The fact that because it kills very efficiently, the likelihood of it spreading out is very low. Transmission efficacy matters more than lethality, and that's what we talked about, right? Because it kills, it works. I'm safe because I'm not in a rural cabin or I'm not around rats. That is false, right? Especially because now we're seeing that there's some human to human transfer. So if you mess around and run into someone, right, who was either on that cruise ship, or don't even have to be on a cruise ship, right? But like has been infected by disease one way or the other, the possibility is there, right? So no, just because you live in a good area, you're not necessarily, you're not 100% safe, right? I don't see any U.S. things at the moment, but again, I don't. Again, we'll cross that bridge if we get there. We'll cross that bridge if we get there, y'all. So, and ladies and gentlemen, like I promise you, this is not a government conspiracy to get you to put on a mask. Like, and I hate that I even have to say that, but I understand that right, am followed by enough conspiracy theorists, or there's enough conspiracy theorists online who are recording video after video that, you know what, I have to say it. No, this is not a government conspiracy to get you to wear a mask. Even though, put an asterisk, if you told me that there's a possibility of hantavirus being around, I probably would wear a mask. I probably would wear a mask if I were you. Again, I'm wearing a mask for concerns of COVID. If the hantavirus, something that if you get the pulmonary syndrome has a mortality rate of 40%, doesn't want you to, spur you to like wear a mask, I don't know what will. Again, I know freedoms, and you got your freedoms and you can do whatever. Cool. Your body, your choice. Like, remember, I know, right? And I hate to even go on this tangent. A lot of y'all were very flagrant during pandemic, right? And I'm only talking about the anti-vaxxers, right? Y'all try to co-opt the whole my body, my choice thing in effort to not wear a mask. Y'all are ridiculous. Y'all, I said you were ridiculous back then. If you're doing anything like that now, you're going to be ridiculous then. Again, United States, like I said, we're just kind of watching and waiting. We're just kind of watching and waiting. We ain't nothing shaking right now, but we will be diligent, right? And again, like this is what it is, right? So again, that is the conversation today, right? Yes, the hantavirus is a problem. Should I be worried about a pandemic? No. But is it a problem? Is it worse than getting COVID? 100%. Did the government make it? No. Like, let's stop that, right? So again, I'm yours truly, Dr. Barry Pierre, host of Medicine Mondays. See you next time.